The slap echoed through the room. Not because it was loud, but because nobody had ever dared to do it. The Korean Mafia boss slowly turned his head. A red mark burned across his cheek. 20 armed men froze. The music stopped. The air itself seemed afraid to move. And standing in front of the most feared man in Seoul was a young African woman whose hands were still shaking. Everyone expected her to die. What nobody expected was what happened next. Because instead of reaching for his gun, the Mafia boss smiled. And that single smile would start a chain of events that would shake an entire criminal empire. Stay with me, because before this story ends, you'll discover how a woman who was sold like property became the one person a powerful Mafia boss could never control, and why the response she gave him changed both of their lives forever. If you love Afro-Korean stories filled with suspense, romance, life lessons, and unforgettable twists, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. The city of Seoul glittered beneath the night sky. Millions of lights stretched across the horizon like stars trapped on Earth. Luxury cars filled the streets. Businessmen hurried between buildings. Tourists laughed beneath glowing signs. But hidden behind the beauty of the city was another world. A darker world. A dangerous world. A world ruled by one man, Taeyong. People whispered his name. Business owners feared him. Politicians avoided him. Criminals obeyed him. At 32 years old, Taeyong controlled one of the most powerful underground organizations in South Korea. His enemies called him ruthless. His followers called him a king. But those closest to him knew something else. The man had no heart left. Years earlier, betrayal had stolen everything he loved. Since then, nobody got close. Nobody stayed. Nobody mattered. Until her. Thousands of miles away, in a small town in Ghana, 25-year-old Ama Mensah sat outside a hospital staring at a bill she couldn't pay. Her mother needed surgery. Her younger brother needed medication. The family business had collapsed months earlier. Every door she knocked on remained closed. Every promise people made disappeared when money became involved. Ama folded the paper and closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt trapped. Not because she lacked strength, but because strength alone could not solve everything. Her phone vibrated. The caller ID made her stomach tighten. Uncle Kojo. The man arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later. Expensive suit. Expensive watch. Expensive smile. The kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "You look tired," he said. Ama crossed her arms. "What do you want?" "I came to help." She almost laughed. The last time her uncle offered help, her father had lost half their land. Help isn't free when it comes from you. His smile widened. "Maybe not." He sat beside her. Then he lowered his voice. "I know someone." Ama already hated where the conversation was going. "Someone rich." "No." "Someone powerful." "No." "Someone who can pay every hospital bill." She stood immediately. "I'm leaving." "Sit down." His tone changed. The smile disappeared. For the first time, genuine fear crept into Ama's chest. "There is a man in Korea. I don't care. He is looking for a wife." Ama stared at him, then laughed. Actually laughed. The idea sounded ridiculous, until she realized he wasn't joking. "You can't be serious. He needs a wife. And he is willing to pay." Her laughter vanished. The silence that followed felt heavy. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your mother lives. Or she dies." Ama's blood ran cold. "You want to sell me?" "I want to save your family." "No." "The hospital doesn't accept no." "No." "The debt collectors don't accept no." "No." Her voice cracked, but she refused to cry. Not in front of him. Not ever. Uncle Kojo stood. "You have 48 hours. Then he handed her a photograph. Ama looked down. The man in the picture stood beside a black luxury car. Tall, broad shoulders, sharp jawline, dark eyes, expensive suit. The face looked emotionless, dangerous, the kind of man who could ruin lives without blinking. "Who is he?" "Taeyong." Ama's stomach twisted. He owns half of Seoul. And the other half? Her uncle smiled. Is afraid of him. For the next 2 days, Amma barely slept. She stayed beside her mother's hospital bed, watched the machines, listened to the beeping monitors, prayed, cried when nobody could see, and searched for another solution. But every road ended the same way. A dead end. On the second night, her mother woke up. Weak, pale, fragile, yet somehow still smiling. Mama! Her mother squeezed her hand. You're worried. Amma looked away. I'm fine. Don't lie. Tears finally appeared. She couldn't stop them. Her mother listened quietly as Amma explained everything. The debt, the hospital, the offer, the Korean Mafia boss, the impossible choice. When she finished, silence filled the room. Then her mother spoke. Amma. Yes. Whatever happens. Her mother's voice trembled. Don't lose yourself. Those words stayed in Amma's mind long after the conversation ended. 3 days later, she boarded a plane to Seoul. Not because she wanted to, because she believed she had no choice. And somewhere in Korea, a mafia boss who controlled everything was about to meet the one woman he could never control. And neither of them had any idea what was coming. The moment the airplane landed in Seoul, Amma felt her stomach tighten. Everything looked different. The buildings seemed taller. The roads seemed cleaner. Even the air felt unfamiliar. She pressed her forehead against the window as passengers began standing. This was not home. And somewhere in this city was a man powerful enough to buy a human life. A man she was about to marry. Her fingers tightened around her mother's photograph. I'll come back for you, she whispered. An hour later, Amma stepped out of Incheon Airport. A black luxury convoy waited outside. For men in dark suits. Nobody smiled. One of them approached her. Miss Amma Kofi? Yes. The man bowed slightly. My name is Mr. Han. His voice was polite. Too polite. The chairman is expecting you. Chairman. Not husband. Not fiancé. Chairman. The word made her uneasy. The drive into Seoul was silent. Amma watched skyscrapers flash past the window. Massive billboards. Luxury stores. Crowded streets. Everything looked alive. Yet the men around her felt like statues. Nobody spoke unless necessary. Nobody checked their phones. Nobody relaxed. It was as if they were all afraid of making a mistake. Finally she asked, Is he really that dangerous? Mr. Han looked at her through the rearview mirror. For the first time, emotion crossed his face. Fear. Just for a second. Then it disappeared. Miss Amma. He spoke carefully. The chairman is a very powerful man. That wasn't an answer, which made the answer even more frightening. 30 minutes later, the convoy entered private gates. Amma stared. The estate looked less like a house and more like a kingdom. Tall walls, private gardens, security cameras, guards positioned everywhere. The main mansion stood in the center. Elegant, beautiful, terrifying. Because nobody built something this secure unless they expected enemies. Or created them. As the vehicle stopped, her heart pounded. This was it. No turning back. A maid escorted her inside. The marble floors gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers. Paintings worth millions decorated the walls. Every corner whispered wealth. Yet the place felt strangely empty. Cold. Like nobody truly lived there. Please wait here. The maid gestured toward a large room. Amma nodded. Then she was alone. Minutes passed. The silence stretched. Then the doors opened. Every muscle in her body froze. A man entered. Tall. Much taller than she expected. Broad shoulders. Black tailored suit. Dark eyes. Sharp jawline. The same man from the photograph. Only far more intimidating in person. Tae-young. The room seemed smaller the moment he entered. Power followed him like a shadow. He stopped several feet away, studying her. Amma studied him too. Neither spoke. Neither looked away. The silence lasted nearly 10 seconds. Then Min-jae spoke first. You're younger than I expected. His voice was calm, deep, controlled. Amma folded her arms. You're colder than I expected. Several staff members immediately lowered their heads. One maid nearly dropped a tray. Nobody spoke to Taeyong that way. Nobody. Taeyong blinked once. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but close. Interesting. Very interesting. If you intend to survive here, he said calmly, you should learn when to remain silent. Amma looked him directly in the eye. If you wanted silence, you should have married a statue. A sharp gasp escaped one of the maids. Mr. Han closed his eyes, as if preparing for a funeral. But Taeyong simply stared. Longer this time. Something unreadable moved behind his eyes. Then he turned away. Bring the contract. 2 lawyers entered. They placed thick documents on the table. Amma sat. The lawyers explained everything. Monthly allowance. Private security. Separate living arrangements. Confidentiality agreements. Public appearances. The words blurred together. Then one sentence caught her attention. She looked up. What happens after 1 year? 1 year? Asked the lawyer. The marriage ends. Amma nodded slowly. Contract marriage. A business transaction. Exactly as she suspected. Then she turned another page. Her face hardened. What is this? The lawyer hesitated. Taeyong answered. The rules. Amma read them. Rule 1. No interference in his business. Rule 2. No entering his private office. Rule 3. No questioning his decisions. Rule 4. No leaving the estate without permission. Rule 5. Obey all security protocols. The more she read, the angrier she became. This wasn't marriage. This was ownership. She looked up. These aren't rules. Nobody moved. They're chains. The room fell silent. Taeyong's expression remained calm. You're free to refuse. Amma almost laughed. Free? Her mother's life depended on this contract. There was nothing free about any of it. Taeyong seemed to understand, because his gaze softened for the briefest moment. Then it disappeared. What do you want? He asked. Amma frowned. What? If you dislike the terms, negotiate. The lawyers looked shocked. Apparently nobody negotiated with Kang Taeyong. Amma slowly closed the contract. Then she spoke. I want one rule added. Now everyone looked shocked, including the lawyers. Even Taeyong seemed curious. What rule? Amma leaned forward. If I'm expected to respect you. Silence. Then you respect me too. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. Mr. Han looked ready to faint. Amma continued. I am not property. Her voice was steady. I am not a prisoner. Still silence. And I am certainly not one of your employees. The room became so quiet that the ticking clock sounded loud. Then Taeyong did something nobody expected. He nodded. Once. Accepted. The lawyers nearly stopped breathing. Amma stared. She hadn't expected him to agree. Neither had anyone else. For the first time, she saw genuine curiosity in his eyes. Not desire. Not affection. Curiosity. As if he were trying to understand a puzzle. Minutes later, the contract was signed. Ink touched paper. A single signature changed everything. Amma Kofi officially became Taeyong's wife. At least on paper. The lawyers left. The staff left. Eventually only Amma and Taeyong remained. The atmosphere changed immediately. He walked toward the window overlooking Seoul. For a moment neither spoke. Then Amma asked quietly, Why me? Taeyong remained facing the city. You were recommended. By who? I don't answer personal questions. Amma rolled her eyes. There it was again. The cold wall. The distance. The control. She stood. Then let me save us both time. His eyes shifted toward her. If you think this marriage means I'll spend my days following orders. She grabbed her suitcase. You chose the wrong woman. Something flashed across his face. Not anger. Amusement. Which somehow felt more dangerous. Amma headed for the door. Then stopped. Because 2 armed guards suddenly appeared outside. Not threatening. Just standing there. Watching. Waiting. Her stomach tightened. For the first time, reality hit her fully. This wasn't merely a mansion. It was a fortress, and she was trapped inside it. Behind her, Taeyong's voice remained calm, almost too calm. You should get some rest. Amma slowly turned around. The city lights reflected in his dark eyes. You'll need it. A strange chill crawled down her spine. Why? For the first time since meeting him, the Mafia boss looked genuinely serious. Because tomorrow, his expression darkened. You'll meet the people who wanted this marriage to happen. Amma's heartbeat stopped. Wanted? People? What people? Before she could ask another question, Taeyong walked away, leaving her alone, with one terrifying realization. She had not been brought to Seoul because someone needed a wife. She had been brought here because she was part of a much bigger game. And whatever that game was, it had already begun. Amma stood perfectly still until the heavy wooden doors of the study closed behind the last lawyer. Silence swallowed the room. The marriage contract still rested on the polished mahogany table between her and Kang Min-jae, its pages neatly aligned as though nothing extraordinary had just happened. Yet everything in Amma's life had changed in the space of a single signature. Taeyong buttoned his suit jacket with slow, practiced movements before fixing those unreadable dark eyes on her. You've agreed to my terms, he said evenly. From today, this mansion is your home. Amma didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked around the enormous room. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves stretched toward the carved ceiling. Expensive paintings lined the walls. Everything spoke of wealth, power, and control. Everything except the man standing before her. Despite his calm expression, there was something lonely about him. I understand, she finally replied. He picked up a small black keycard and placed it on the table. Second floor, East Wing. She glanced at it. Your room. My room? She asked. Our rooms, he corrected. Adjacent. Separate. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. You expected something else? No. You sound disappointed. She smiled faintly. I sound relieved. For the first time since she'd met him, something almost resembling amusement flickered across Taeyong's face before disappearing just as quickly. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the door. One more thing. Amma looked up. I don't repeat myself. I usually don't make people repeat themselves. Another tiny pause. Then he walked away. An elderly woman dressed in an elegant black uniform appeared moments later. Mrs. Taeyong. Amma nearly corrected her before remembering the contract. The woman bowed politely. My name is Mrs. Han. I manage this household. She spoke kindly, but her eyes carried years of experience. If you'll follow me. The mansion felt endless. Every hallway gleamed beneath soft lighting. Marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers overhead. Original artwork hung between enormous windows overlooking the Seoul skyline. Amma had never imagined anyone could actually live somewhere like this. As they climbed the staircase, she noticed something strange. There were security cameras everywhere. Discreet. Hidden. Watching. Almost every corner. Mrs. Han noticed her looking. This house has many enemies. Amma nodded silently. I believe that. They reached the second floor. Several housekeepers immediately stopped working and bowed respectfully. Two bodyguards standing outside another hallway straightened as Amma passed. Nobody smiled. Nobody even looked comfortable. Felt less like a home, and more like a fortress. Mrs. Han opened a large double door. This is your room. Amma stepped inside. It was bigger than the apartment she had shared with her mother back in Accra. Cream-colored walls, soft lighting, a king-sized bed, fresh flowers, private sitting area, walk-in wardrobe, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. Everything was breathtaking, yet somehow, it felt empty. Mrs. Han quietly set Amma's suitcase beside the bed. If you require anything, simply press the call button. Before leaving, she hesitated. May I offer one piece of advice? Amma nodded. Please. Mrs. Han lowered her voice. Do not anger Chairman Yang. Amma smiled gently. I wasn't planning to. No. The older woman's expression became serious. Many people weren't. Then she quietly left. Hours later, evening settled over Seoul. Amma wandered onto the balcony outside her room. Cool wind brushed against her face as countless city lights stretched toward the horizon. She leaned against the railing. "So this is my new life." The words barely escaped her lips before another voice answered. "You should be inside." She turned. Taeyong stood on the neighboring balcony outside his own room. His sleeves were rolled neatly to his forearms now, his tie gone. For the first time, he looked less like a feared mafia boss, and more like an exhausted man. "It's beautiful out here," Amma replied. "It isn't safe." She looked around. "We're on the second floor. My enemies don't care." She studied him for several seconds. "You really believe danger follows you everywhere?" "I don't believe." His voice remained calm. "I know." Silence settled between them. Finally Amma spoke again. "You live like a prisoner." His eyes narrowed slightly. "What did you say?" "You built a palace." She gestured toward the endless mansion. "But you don't seem free inside it." He stared at her. Nobody had ever described his life that way. Nobody. "You assume too much." "Maybe." She shrugged lightly. "Or maybe I notice things." Before he could respond, his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. His expression softened instantly. "My grandmother." Without another word, he answered. "Halmiani." Amma looked away politely, giving him privacy. But she couldn't help noticing the change in his voice. Gone was the cold authority. Gone was the intimidating chairman. Instead, there was warmth, gentleness, almost affection. "Yes, I ate." A pause. "No, I didn't skip lunch." Another pause. He sighed. "I'm 35, not 15. A faint chuckle escaped him. Amma smiled to herself. So the cold mafia boss did know how to laugh. Interesting. The following morning, breakfast was served precisely at 7. A table long enough for 20 people held only 2 place settings. Amma arrived first. Fresh fruit, rice porridge, eggs, kimchi, coffee, tea. She sat quietly. 5 minutes later, Taeyong entered. He stopped immediately. "You started eating." Amma looked up, slightly confused. "Yes. I wasn't here." "I noticed." His eyes hardened slightly. "We eat together." "I was hungry." Another silence. The servants froze. Nobody dared breathe. Mrs. Han looked terrified. Amma calmly took another bite of toast. "If that's another rule," she said. "You forgot to mention it yesterday." Taeyong stared at her. Then, to everyone's complete shock, he pulled out his chair and sat down. "No." His voice remained calm. "I forgot." Every servant secretly exchanged stunned glances. Chairman Yang had admitted he was wrong? Mrs. Han nearly dropped the teapot. Later that afternoon, Amma wandered into the mansion's enormous library. Thousands of books covered every wall. She smiled. Finally, something familiar. She reached for a history book. "You read." She turned. One of the younger bodyguards stood awkwardly near the doorway. Amma's heart slammed against her ribs before she even understood what had happened. The luxury car had barely turned into the narrow mountain road when 3 black other cars burst from the trees like predators waiting for prey. Tires screamed. Metal crashed. Bullets shattered the silence. "Down!" Taeyong roared. His arm shot across Amma's body, forcing her below the dashboard just as the windshield exploded into thousands of glittering pieces. Glass rained over them. The driver lost control. The car spun violently before slamming sideways into a stone barrier. Everything went silent. For one terrifying second, Amma couldn't hear anything except the ringing inside her ears. Then came another sound. Gunfire. Closer. Much closer. Taeyong looked through the cracked window, his face becoming colder than she'd ever seen. "They found us." Outside, armed men surrounded the wrecked vehicle. Black suits, automatic rifles, no insignia, professional. One of them smiled. "Chairman Yang," he shouted. "Come out. We only want your wife." Amma's stomach twisted. "Me?" Taeyong slowly reached beneath his seat and pulled out a black handgun. His voice remained calm. "They're lying." She stared. "What?" "They came for both of us." The rear window exploded. Bullets ripped through the seats. Without hesitation, Taeyong grabbed Amma's wrist. "Run." He kicked the door open. Smoke filled the air. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Taeyong fired twice with terrifying precision. 2 attackers collapsed immediately. "Move!" He practically dragged Amma into the thick forest beside the road. Branches whipped against their faces. Leaves crunched beneath their feet. Behind them, men shouted. Dogs barked. Someone yelled, "Don't let them escape." Amma struggled to keep up. "I can't." "You can. They're too close." "I know." His grip tightened. For nearly 15 minutes, they ran deeper into the mountain until they reached an abandoned wooden cabin hidden between enormous pine trees. Taeyong pushed the door open. Dust floated through broken sunlight. No electricity. No furniture except an old table. He locked the door. Only then did Amma notice the blood. Fresh blood. Dark blood. His left shoulder. The white shirt beneath his black jacket had turned crimson. "Oh my God!" He looked down as though he hadn't even noticed. "It's nothing." She frowned. "Nothing?" He shrugged. "I've survived worse." She marched toward him. "Sit." His eyebrow lifted. That wasn't a request. For the first time since she'd met him, someone had ordered the feared Korean Mafia boss to do something. He almost laughed. Instead, he sat. Amma removed her scarf and tore it into long strips. "You've been shot. Grazed. It still needs treatment." She cleaned the wound using bottled water she found inside an old cabinet. Taeyong watched her silently. "You should hate me." She paused. "What?" "You were forced into this marriage." She continued wrapping the wound. "You've lied to me." "Yes. You control people with fear." "I do. My life has been in danger since the day I met you." "Also true." She tied the bandage tightly. "So why are you helping me?" Amma finally looked into his eyes. "Because you're bleeding." He stared at her. "You've protected me every time someone tried to hurt me. You became my responsibility." "No." She shook her head. "I became your wife." Silence settled between them. Not awkward. Just heavy. Then Taeyong finally spoke. "I didn't marry because I wanted love. I figured. My organization is breaking apart." He looked toward the broken window. "My uncle wants my position." Amma listened carefully. "He controls nearly half of my men." "He arranged today's attack?" Taeyong nodded once. "He believes if I die without a legal heir or wife, leadership returns to him. So that's why you needed a wife." "Yes." Amma leaned back. "So this marriage wasn't about business." "No. It was survival." He met her eyes. "For both of us." A loud crack echoed outside. Both froze. Footsteps. Someone was approaching. Taeyong immediately extinguished the small lantern. Darkness swallowed the room. Voices drifted through the trees. "They're close. Search every cabin. They can't have gone far." Amma instinctively reached for Taeyong's arm. His hand covered hers. Warm. Steady. Fear disappeared just enough for her to breathe. The footsteps stopped directly outside the cabin. The old wooden floor creaked. Someone tested the door handle. Locked. A voice laughed. "They're inside." Amma's heartbeat became almost unbearable. Taeyong slowly raised his pistol. Without looking away from the door, he whispered, "If they enter." "No. They'll kill you." "You won't let them." His eyes softened. "I've overpowered too many people. You won't do that to me." He looked surprised. She squeezed his hand. "We survived together." The silence between them carried more meaning than words ever could. Suddenly, boom! The front door exploded inward. Wood splintered everywhere. 3 armed men rushed inside. Taeyong fired instantly. One injured. Another fired back. Bullets tore through the walls. Amma dropped behind the overturned table. Smoke filled the tiny cabin. One attacker circled behind them. Amma saw him first. "Taeyong." He turned. Too late. The assassin raised his rifle. Amma didn't think. She grabbed an old iron lantern from the floor and hurled it with every ounce of strength she had. Crack! The lantern smashed into the attacker's face. He staggered backward. Taeyong fired. The man collapsed. Again. Only their breathing remained. Taeyong looked at Amma. "You just saved my life." She swallowed hard. "I couldn't let him shoot you." Outside, more engines arrived. Much more. Taeyong looked through the shattered wall. His face darkened. "No!" Amma followed his gaze. Nearly 20 vehicles. Hundreds of armed men. But something felt different. These men wore the Yang family insignia. Leading them, an older Korean man stepped from the first car. Elegant gray suit, silver hair, cold smile. Taeyong whispered only one name. "Uncle." The older man slowly applauded. "Very impressive." His voice echoed across the mountain. "You always were difficult to kill." He smiled directly at Amma. "And you?" His eyes narrowed. "You are far more troublesome than I expected." Amma felt ice run through her veins. The uncle raised one finger. Every rifle aimed directly at the cabin. Taeyong quietly stood in front of Amma, shielding her with his body. "No matter what happens." He didn't take his eyes off the men outside. "Stay behind me." Amma grabbed the back of his jacket. "No." He frowned. "If you die." Her voice trembled. "I'm not leaving you." His expression changed. For the first time, the feared mafia boss looked not like a fighter, but like a man terrified of losing the only person who had ever chosen to stand beside him. If you're still holding your breath, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Stories like this only get more intense from here, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Outside, the uncle smiled. "Bring me the girl. And don't spare Taeyong." The older man's smile faded the moment Taeyong stepped out of the ruined cabin. The forest fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Dozens of armed men surrounded the clearing, their rifles aimed directly at him. But Taeyong stood tall as though he feared nothing. Behind him, Amma refused to hide. Every instinct told her to stay inside the cabin. Yet she stepped forward until she stood beside her husband. The uncle laughed quietly. "So, the little bride has courage." Amma met his eyes. "I have something stronger than courage." "Oh, I have truth." A murmur spread through the armed men. The uncle's smile became colder. "You should have stayed in America. And you should have stopped lying years ago." The men exchanged confused glances. Taeyong slowly turned toward Amma. She nodded once. It was time. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a thick brown envelope. The uncle's expression changed instantly. His confidence disappeared. "Where did you get that?" Amma answered calmly. "The people you paid forgot one thing." "And what's that?" "They also wanted justice." Taeyong looked at her, surprised. "You've been investigating?" She smiled gently. "I couldn't understand why so many loyal men suddenly betrayed you. It never made sense." She handed the documents to Taeyong. "Your assistant helped me." He opened the file. Inside were photographs, bank transfers, secret contracts, phone records. Everything pointed to one man, Okong Suk, his own uncle. For years he had secretly sold information about Hanul trading routes, stolen company funds, bribed politicians, and arranged assassinations inside the organization while pretending to protect the family. Every crime, every betrayal, every theft, documented. The uncle's face turned pale. "Those papers are fake." "No," another voice answered. Everyone turned. A convoy of black luxury car rolled into the clearing. More guards stepped out. This time they wore the official Yang family insignia. Leading them was Chairman Han, the oldest surviving advisor of the Yang family. He bowed respectfully to Taeyong. "Chairman." Taeyong frowned. "You knew." "We suspected." Chairman Han looked toward Amma. "But your wife gave us proof." The uncle slowly stepped backward. "You fools." He raised his pistol toward Amma. "If I can't control this family, I'll destroy it." Bang! The shot echoed through the forest. Amma closed her eyes. Nothing happened. When she opened them, Taeyong stood in front of her. Blood slowly spread across his sleeve. He had taken the bullet. No! Amma caught him before he collapsed. You idiot! His lips curved into a weak smile. I told you. I'd protect you. The surrounding guards reacted instantly. The uncle was tackled to the ground before he could fire again. His weapon slid across the dirt. Within seconds, the man who had terrorized the Yang family for years was handcuffed by his own soldiers. It's over, Chairman Han said quietly. The uncle screamed. You'll regret this. Nobody answered. His own men turned their backs on him. For the first time, he stood completely alone. Minutes later, an ambulance arrived. Doctors treated Taeyong beside the forest road. The bullet passed through the shoulder. The doctor smiled. He'll recover. Amma's knees finally gave way. Relief washed over her. She had almost lost him. Taeyong reached for her hand. She grabbed it immediately. You stayed. She laughed through tears. You still don't understand me. He looked confused. I stopped being here because of a contract a long time ago. His breathing slowed. I know. No. She squeezed his hand tighter. I stayed because somewhere between all the danger, all the arguments, and all the stubbornness, she smiled. I fell in love with you. Time seemed to stop. Even Chairman Han quietly looked away to give them privacy. Taeyong stared at her as though he had forgotten how to speak. The feared Mafia boss has no words? She teased softly. He laughed. It was warm, real. Probably the first genuine laugh he'd had in years. I spent my whole life believing fear made people stay. He brushed a tear from her cheek. You taught me something else. And what's that? Love stays. Even when it has every reason to leave. Amma leaned forward carefully and rested her forehead against his. I love you, Taeyong. His eyes glistened. I love you too. I think. I've loved you since the day you refused to obey me. Months later, spring arrived in Seoul. Cherry blossoms danced through the warm afternoon breeze. The Yang estate no longer felt cold. Laughter echoed through the gardens. Employees smiled without fear. Children from nearby orphanages played freely on the once restricted grounds because Amma had convinced Taeyong to open the estate every weekend for community programs. His grandmother watched everything from the terrace with tears of joy. I told you, she whispered. My grandson didn't need another soldier. She smiled proudly at Amma. He needed a woman with a brave heart. Amma laughed as Taeyong wrapped one arm gently around her shoulders. I suppose grandmother was right. For once. For always. Everyone laughed. The fear that once ruled the Yang family had been replaced by trust. The organization itself changed too. Illegal businesses were dismantled. Corrupt leaders were removed. The family's wealth was redirected into legitimate companies, schools, and hospitals across Korea and Africa. Many doubted it could happen. But one fearless woman had changed the heart of the man everyone believed was beyond saving. Sometimes strength isn't shown by controlling others. Sometimes true strength is admitting you're wrong. Sometimes the bravest person in the room isn't the one carrying the gun, but the one carrying compassion. Because love cannot be forced. Respect cannot be bought. And even the coldest heart can change when it meets someone brave enough to tell the truth and kind enough to stay afterward. As the sun disappeared behind the Seoul skyline, Taeyong looked at Amma. If I had to choose again, he smiled. I'd still choose the woman who refused to obey me. She laughed. And I'd still choose the man everyone else was afraid to love. They walked hand in hand beneath the cherry blossoms, leaving behind a past filled with fear and stepping into a future built on trust, healing, and hope. If this story touched your heart, let us know by commenting "True Love Wins" below. We'd love to hear what moment moved you the most. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes that even the hardest hearts can change a destiny forever.